Put on your big Hollywood sunglasses and light the torch, because it's cellar time. Welcome to the Crack Cellar, as the prophecy was foretold. I'm Two-Spirit Penguin Daniel.
And I'm Broadcaster Nickels.
And today we talk a little about Halo 3.
No.
Rebranded as Halo Infinite, okay? Broadcaster Nickels, what is going on? I swear to God, I was watching a Halo 3 trailer, but 343 Studios told me it was the future of gaming.
This coming in, hold on a second. I'm getting a call from the CEO of Microsoft right now. What's that? Free to play is a good choice? You're going to monetize the podcast? Absolutely. 1 second. Edit that out. So, Halo Infinite is actually a revolutionary free-to-play game that we're actually pretty excited for. The downgraded graphics and the just lackluster intro and musicless, if that's proper English, intro is just overwhelming, honestly, to the emotions. I mean, I have you ever personally experienced such a force, such a driving piece of art?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I saw that laser tag gunplay at work, and my heart soared into the heavens. I thought, finally, the prophecy has been fulfilled.
I'll be honest. I have never had gameplay take me back to my childhood like I was playing a game in 2009. I mean, in a good way. In a good way.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
In the only good way possible, what I mean.
Indeed, and if Thomas Jefferson were here with us today, he would also agree that the future is Halo Infinite, and the future is bright indeed.
We at the Crack Cellar are not saying 343's ancestors were slave owners. That is not what we're saying. All right?
But
I just want that to be clear and on the record.
But look into it. That's all we're saying.
Yeah, to put jokes aside, though, I had this huge red exclamation mark over my head when I saw Halo Infinite's gameplay trailer. That was just, what was it, like 4 days ago, 5 days ago?
Yeah, it was pretty recent.
Yeah. I gave them the benefit of the doubt. The graphics, I've never been a big thing with graphics. Graphics have never been a big thing for me, just because if the storyline's there and the gameplay is there, then, especially if there's a lot of it there, then graphics can take a hit in my book, But the moment their PR run to solve this whole graphics PR issue was to say it was free to play, I lost all hope. I was just like, wait a minute. You're telling me this is going to be a Destiny free-to-play clone with a Halo skin? That's what it's going to be. I guarantee it. You're not going to like the way it looks.
And once again, the theme of modern gaming, fear the monetization. The monetization is coming for us all, and it will not stop.
It's so true, and it's so late to the bat as well. This is supposed... I don't know. I feel like I'm going to go on a rant because I'm an old school Halo fanboy. And there's a huge place in my heart for the original trilogy and ODST and Reach. But everything past that has kind of just slowly been turning into swill. Halo 4 doesn't deserve so much hate. It was an all right game. And then Halo 5 came in and it made Halo 4 look like a diamond. I mean, it was crazy how bad I thought it was and how bad just overall it was received. And now we get Halo Infinite. It's been hyped up for, I feel like 2 years.
Yeah.
we've been slowly getting hyped up for this game, and
Microsoft knew people thought this was like a new like a flagship Halo title. Everyone thought that until now.
I mean, it's supposed to be their system seller.
Yeah.
And it's a free-to-play fucking game, and it's going to be on Steam.
This is 343 Studios waving the white flag, basically. This is them admitting that they're not Bungie and they can't really make new great Halo games.
You know, I don't know if that's what it is. I don't know if they're trying to, like, use a good monetization model that's been proven on top of trying to make another Halo game that people want / I really don't know where they're going with it, to be honest. It just seems like such a bad move now in hindsight, because this was supposed to be their exclusive. First of all, I would say about a year and a half in, so, you know, about 6 months ago, if you were to tell the community that this was not an exclusive system seller, Xbox would be hurting so bad right now. The morale would be deep down in the fucking dirt, like 6 feet or more, because this was their crutch exclusive game.
Mm-hmm.
And now it turns out, not only is it not exclusive, but it's free to play swill. Well, I mean, I'm not going to say swill immediately. It might be all right, but let's be real, guys. Like, when it's free to play,
it's over.
You know exactly what comes with that. You know exactly what comes with that. We've had so many fucking examples. Skins, withheld content, lackluster DLC, or no DLC at all. And when I mean by that, like, actual true expansions, if you will. You're just going to get, here's a new, or here's the same race with a new skin, and we're going to call it something different, and a new set of weapons this season, you know? I do not be fucking surprised when you hear Halo Infinite has what a season's pass, or a battles pass, or a fucking EverQuest rim job, whatever you fucking want to call it. All right,
EverQuest rim job. That's
right.
A fucking Crack Cellar term right there. Put that in the record book.
Didn't deserve that. I meant the Eververse from Destiny. I apologize, the creators of EverQuest, if you're listening, because your game didn't deserve that.
Oh shit! Do you think the free to play is just going to be for the multiplayer, and they're going to make you buy the campaign, or do you think there is no campaign?
There is a campaign. They said there is.
They did. Okay, that's confirmed.
Yeah.
Okay. So then my question stands. Do you think that the campaign is what they're going to try and charge people for?
No.
You think it'll be free? You think the campaign will be free?
I think what they're going to charge people for is cosmetic armor attachments, visor lenses, nostalgic items. Like, if you want to be like, I already can see them pulling on the heartstrings of people that are emotionally attached to a certain Halo. You're going to be like, oh, you want Master Chief's helmet from Halo 3? That's $2. Or it's a part of this $10 package or whatever. The Halo 2 package or the Halo 3 package or whatever. You know, Halo is supposed to, and many other types of games are about being able to earn all that stuff in the game. You know, this is totally unrelated, but like a game like Chrono Cross, that was a huge, like, I remember getting that game. It was one of the first games where I legitimately 100%ed it. I bought the strategy guide. I fucking had multiple save files. I got all the characters. I got all that shit. And Halo was just like that, but for FPS. And it's just not like that anymore. And seeing Halo themselves, 343, maybe not, they're not Bungie, but still they're holding the torch, divert and not do it anymore. It's so heartbreaking.
Do you think it is heartbreaking? Do you think it's possible that they run Halo so far into the grave that they go scorched earth and they just sell it back to Bungie? Do you think that's possible?
I mean, in a dream world for me is that Destiny somehow gets some angel investors that are not Chinese and
good luck with that.
Allows them. Well, actually, you know what? I'll take a step back. Because now I said that, I was thinking, I made up my mind about that like a year or so ago. But now that I know they're making other games, my true hope is that their other games are so successful that they can take their main team from Destiny and have a sub team that runs it, and maybe even successfully can build, minor content while they get back Halo. Maybe can make a contract with Microsoft and fucking make Halo great again. I don't know. The gaming industry, maybe not everyone will agree. It's hard to tell because as the older you get, the further away you get from the majority of gamers. But it just seems like the gaming industry is really confused and almost in dismay. There's been such an abuse of monetization throughout every single genre now that it's rather corrupted it or destroyed the genre, and people don't even make the game anymore. Phone games can't even be good because of how nasty monetization is in that whole field.
Phone games basically took the torch of casino games. They're all casino games.
They are.
Even the good ones. And I do play one called Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. It's a good game. The core gameplay of it is great, but it has the exact same monetization bullshit as every other phone game that exists. And it is unbelievable, some of the stuff these guys try and push. There's $100 pack that they've been trying to sell to me for 2 years now that still pops up in my notifications every fucking day I log in to try and get me to buy it. $100. I'm just like, no, stop. There's no option to silence it, to squelch it. These phone games, they're insidious with their monetization. And I think that's coming to all games.
Well, for sure, because it's just, if people will pay for it, they'll do it unless it's regulated. But without getting off topic too much, the last thing I'll say about that is there's only 8 to 12 actual phone games. This is something that people, if they actually think about it, will realize. There's only about 8 to 12 actual different types of phone games out there.
Yeah.
Everything else you see is just a reskin of that type of game.
One hits it big.
Exact same monetization scheme. The exact same. Mm-hmm. You could literally just take away whatever skin you're seeing, treasure chests, jewels, coins, money, fucking space bucks, whatever. It's the same shit. It's the same exact scheme. But nonetheless, things that I will say that are good about Halo Infinite that I saw, and that from what I understand, is that supposedly, this isn't 100% confirmed, but it's been kind of theorized and almost confirmed by just how the map is generated and what people see as actual on the screen, that the whole Halo ring is explorable. It's not just this linear sections like a traditional Halo, which is kind of obvious at this point now, but nonetheless, it sounds like the Halo itself is a giant sandbox, which is kind of cool. I won't lie. That is something as a Halo fan I've always wanted to see, where you actually went around the ring, or it felt like you explored sections that were all over the ring. As long as you're talking about the original trilogy, it really felt like you were in this really small section of the ring. Mm-hmm. You didn't really explore too much of the other parts.
Yeah, I like that though. That's kind of a trope from old school video games.
True.
I think about the Kingdom of Zeal and the Black Omen from Chrono Trigger. Sure. And it's we only explored probably 10% of what was shown. What you actually played in the game. If you extrapolate that with the actual sprites it shows on the world map, it's we were in 10% of that. So it adds this layer of mystery to places and kind of a mystique where it's even though you've been there, you look at them and you still feel this, oh, that's the Black Omen. It still has a level of mysteriousness to it. I think you lose that when you make every square inch explorable. I do think that.
Yeah, and I also think that's a byproduct of having a 3D map versus a 2D map. Because, with a 2D map, and I think this is the main difference between these games in comparison wise, is that in a game like Chrono Trigger and the Kingdom of Zeal, what you saw, is what you explored. You didn't really see like this huge area past the invisible boundary, if you will, like on a 3D map. I'm not saying like the whole ring looked like it was explorable, but like when you're on that plane of existence, if you will, and you see the horizon like that, your brain almost like makes up the area beyond that boundary, and you're just like, oh well, I really would. It would be one day. It'd be cool to actually be able just to be in a sandbox where everything truly was explorable. That's why it's cheap sandbox games, and I'm not saying cheap in a bad way, but Grand Theft Auto, where the graphics are a lot more downgraded and stuff in comparison, but the explorability and scale is way more. I think that's the main reason why you see people would want a Halo game to do that more than say like an old school RPG like Chrono Trigger, where every room you saw you could explore in Chrono Trigger. It wasn't like when you went into a room there was like, I bring back the horizon where you could see past certain, like out the window, and you're just like, well, I can't go outside and actually go down to that area,
Yeah, the open world thing is interesting because it kind of kills some of the mystique of what a video game is, in my opinion.
It does. It's a cheap, like that's why I use the word cheapen.
Yeah,
I almost don't want to use it in a bad way because there's a lot of good sandbox games out there.
There is, yeah.
It does. No matter how good it is, it has this watering down effect.
It does. It does. I liked them more in the early days. Like, I still will say Vice City is one of my favorite open world games of all time, and it came out in what, 2001?
Sure. It's such a classic game. I wish they would redo that game. Just give it modern graphics, keep it together perfectly.
Yeah, they should. I don't know why they haven't. I feel like I can't. There's no way I'm just making this up, right? Vice City is the best Grand Theft Auto, isn't it? Is that a controversial opinion?
I think it'd probably be tied between San Andreas and Vice City.
I know people like San Andreas a lot, but I thought Vice City was way better.
But it's definitely not Grand Theft Auto 4.
Oh god, dude, wow, yeah,
what a letdown.
Not to go too off topic, but Grand Theft Auto 4 sucked so bad.
On the Guilty Gear Stride.
A game that I hope doesn't suck, because I really am sick and tired of Guilty Gear being the third-class citizen in fighting games. I'm sick of it. They belong at the top, the mountaintop, not at the bottom. They belong at the tip, right there next to Macho Man Randy Savage doing lines of coke off of hooker asses. What do you think, Broadcaster Nickels? What do you think about Guilty Gear Stride? Because I feel like they are striving for excellence.
All right. First of all, Guilty Gear is excellence. Second, Randy Savage is excellence. Third, I think the main key ingredient, maybe I might be stumbling on to something here, but Guilty Gear doesn't have any type of third-party content that lifts up its IP.
No, it doesn't.
You look at other fighters, like maybe Mortal Kombat's the other exception, but that's just Mortal Kombat doesn't need to do it because it's a classic. But if you look at Marvel versus Capcom, Dragon Ball Z, what's other relevant fighters right now?
Well, I mean, I hate calling it a fighting game, but Smash Brothers is considered like the king of fighting games, and I hate calling it a fighting game. It's more like Mario Party than it is a fighting game.
But what do all those things have in common?
Oh, yeah, existing IP is propping them up.
For sure. Guilty Gear, while I love the bubble personally, and I've grown up with it personally, it's a small bubble. It's a small fan base, in comparison, I should say. It's just, I think they could do really well just take a risk and make an anime or make a high budget movie or fucking write a couple mangas or do something with the character IP, so they can become more familiar with people.
Yeah, it's weird, but they have made it. I mean, Arxis has made a very intentional decision with Guilty Gear and the way they treat it. They treat it as just an arcade fighter. They, every year, or not every year, but every few years, they make a new Guilty Gear arcade cabinet. And then some of them make it to console. Most of them do, but some don't. But that's what they do. Guilty Gear is a arcade game. It's first and foremost made as an arcade fighting game. Then they port it to become a console game. And because of that, you don't have like the same trappings a lot of these other fighting games have with like the storylines. Like look at DBFZ, another Arxis game. DBFZ has one of the most in-depth storylines that Arxis has ever done ever, period, in any game at all. And it's astonishing they haven't been able to just do half of that for one Guilty Gear game.
That's what, yeah. I don't want to interrupt you, but that's what's most surprising is that seeing this game, I only saw I saw everything that's per usual. With everything looks great, but it's just like, man, coming off Fighter Z, it's like I don't know. I'm just expecting more, you know. I want to see something that's going to catch everyone's attention where I'm just like, finally.
Yeah.
You know, maybe some people will come to me and be like, you want to play Guilty Gear for once? Fuck.
That would be so nice. If I wasn't like the only person I knew who gave a fuck about Guilty Gear, that'd be a great timeline to live in.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's until they change their ethos, it's not going to change because when you make an arcade game, arcade cabinets don't have storylines. You know what I'm saying? Like, so if you're just taking an arcade game and porting it to console, you're talking about a shit ton of extra work to just craft a campaign specifically for the console only. When you can just make the money by just simply porting the arcade game you already made. So I think it's kind of a philosophy thing for Arxis. They are treating this like it's the 1990s. And I think that's part of the reason why Guilty Gear is so good still, but it's also the reason why we're not getting these storylines or any like extra modes and in-depth. Like look at Airgees from the 90s. Fucking Airgees had like a Diablo dungeon crawler minigame. This is a podunk little fighting game that has its own Diablo clone in it as a side game. And it's like, we've already seen Guilty Gear Izuka do something similar to that, which is like, it was kind of like Guilty Gear meets Final Fight, which was great.
They would have kept that going.
It's like, why have they, they've abandoned it. They've completely abandoned that whole, like, we're going to take this franchise into the stars. They're just, no, this is a fighting game. It's all about mechanics. We don't give a fuck about story. We don't give a fuck about anything other than just the pure mechanics of the game, which on one hand is great, but on the other hand, when you've seen the early stuff from Guilty Gear where they did delve into the story a little bit more and you just had like, that man and Justice and like all these characters, and it had so much potential.
Well, everything was esoteric in its vibe back then, you know, like there was no like super detailed character plot, you know, things like that man, like you knew enough to be like, no, he was a really cool villain, but you didn't quite know why he was a villain. You know?
Yeah.
Everything was like that back in the day.
It was. And Arxis is just content to keep it that way with Guilty Gear, which it's, I don't know, man. I just want to find a way to buy a new Guilty Gear game and not see the multiplayer lobbies empty a week after its release. That's all I want. And if it takes them making a storyline like DBFZ or whatever it takes, I just want that to happen because I want to play Guilty Gear, but I am unable to. And it's bullshit in 2020 that I can't.
Yeah. But honestly, like it's since the conception of Guilty Gear. Guilty Gear's always been the fighter game where you're just like, you want to play Guilty Gear? And it's always just like, no, man, like you're too good and no one else plays it and I don't want to get murdered. Or it's like you genuinely find someone that doesn't know what Guilty Gear is and you straight up murder them. Very, 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 very rarely do you actually run into someone that knows what Guilty Gear is and they're good at it and they want to play you. You know, in person, at least back in the day. Now that translates to the future that none of these lobbies stay active for that long because it's just the player base is so small. So it's just a Guilty Gear problem.
It is.
And that's why I feel going back all the way to the beginning is that, I mean, we'll talk about what's new with Strive here in a second. But I mean, going back to the beginning, what I said is that Guilty Gear just needs to find some type of secret sauce in another IP avenue. Like, they need to branch out the characters inside the Guilty Gear into some other medium. I'm not saying they have to like do a lot, but they should really experiment with it, you know?
Yeah.
Because, dude, what if Jam or, you know, Kai Kiske or Potemkin or just or Faust, you know, one of these goofy characters, they're just gold waiting to happen in some manner.
Dude, they need to make a buddy cop anime starring Potemkin and Faust.
Dude, that'd be great.
Yes, right now, sign me up.
Great.
Oh shit! So it's the graphics, the gameplay, everything we've seen. It just looks like a highly upgraded XRD Rev 3, or was it Rev 2? I forget which.
Xrd
Rev something, whatever. It looks just like that, but better. The graphics just look better, but the same. And they still have this weird fucking issue with the animation frames. Have you noticed this about all the recent Guilty Gears, and they just refuse to fix it? When, like, they do the little walk-ups, like the little walk-up intros with the pseudo 3D, 2D, it, like, animates the characters at, like, fucking 10 FPS. It's so weird.
Yeah, I think it's on purpose to make it look old.
That's an interesting take.
I think, and I'm not a coder or a developer or anything like that, but because it took me a second to understand what you were talking about, but the characters look, what's the word I'm looking for? Unnecessarily bad. And I think they're doing it to make it look old school because the engine they're actually being rendered on makes them look too, in I guess improper words, fake for Guilty Gear, not like up to snuff. So they do like some artificial downgrading effect.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's just bugged me. I think it's been in like the last 4 Guilty Gears that have been released over the PS4 and the PS3. It's just been a thing. And if it were something like a bug or like something like that, you'd think they would have fixed it by now. So you're probably right. They probably are doing it intentionally, but I find it to be a little jarring. I'm not sure if it's a good move.
I noticed it ever since they started doing Blaze Blue.
Oh, God.
After the first Blaze Blue and Guilty Gear came back after its little bit of a hiatus, that's when I started to notice that.
Yeah.
But, that being said, what's new about this, and I thought was fucking hilarious, is that, you know, the black weebs out there, they finally got their character. I mean, I know more than a handful of black weebs like dream of looking like the character that is coming into this game. I'm like, bruh, dude, this is the Samurai Black Nardo.
Oh, you're talking about the Afro Samurai guy. Yeah.
Well, he's like a vampire bounty hunter dude or something like that. But it's just like, dude, I know a few people that probably look in the mirror and wish they looked like that dude.
Yeah. Yeah, originally
they're hitting a certain demographic with that character. They know they are.
Yeah, and so apparently that character's unique to the console version too. He wasn't in the arcade version of Strive.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so I think it might have had some
because of certain events happening.
Yep, exactly. I think that's exactly it. Some guy was bored and locked down. And he's like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna make Afro Samurai. Let's do this shit."
Yeah, looks like a dope character in my opinion.
Well, dude, I mean, I've seen all the trailers released so far, and all the characters look fucking great. Watching Mia do all of her fucking little moon somersault shit, watching Eddie, Zato 1. What are they? Did they just change which name he goes by each game?
Well, it matters how I've honestly,
I feel like they changed it every other game.
I haven't paid attention to the storyline like like super. I'm lost for words, but I haven't paid attention to the story too much since Accent or Ascent or whatever you call it.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, like after that, it's just kind of over for me. But
yeah,
it just matters how the story goes. Did he ever go back to being Eddie?
I don't know. Maybe we'll get. Man, maybe there will be a storyline in this one, and we'll get answers like that.
Zato 1 is the host. Eddie's the demon.
Yes.
Yeah. So did he ever go back to being Zato?
I don't know. Like, it's weird. I swear to God, they change it every other game. But speaking of demons that may or may not turn into liquid, Broadcaster Nickels, are you ready for our preview of Resident Evil 8?
You mean Resident Evil 4 Part 2?
I mean, Chris Redfield gonna rape somebody.
Wow.
What's that? You want more Crack Cellar? This is good. Join your lords on Twitter at The Crack Cellar and Facebook.com/The Crack Cellar.
Hey, you over there. Are you a straight-up Chad or a strong woman? Well, you can find us on Apple Podcasts and your favorite podcasting app. Or, if you're a straight-up beta cuck, find us on YouTube with the rest of the Cloud Chasers. And we're back with our preview of Resident Evil 8 Village. Broadcaster Nickels, werewolves?
I definitely have Kate Beckinsale on my future ex-wife list. Question mark? Are you pressuring me right now?
Well, if Scarlett Johansson and Kate Beckinsale ever wanted to do like a lesbian scene in a porn, would it not like you talk about breaking the internet? Would that not break
the internet? That's breaking existence.
Yeah, it might break the time-space continuum.
The Beyonders would fucking come to planet Earth and be like, bruh, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah. Man, oh man. So Resident Evil 8, what do we believe about Resident Evil 8? What do we know about Resident Evil 8? Because I'm not even sure it really is Resident Evil 8. What say you, Broadcaster Nickels? Is this a numbered title?
Yes. Well, it is, in my opinion, and I'm pretty sure now you're making me second guess a little bit in the PR perspective too, because Resident Evil 7 was the exact same way. Remember, they had 7 in Resident Evil, and everyone thought it was kind of like a reboot at first, and then people thought it was a prequel, and then they got to the, stuff like that, and we find out it's at literally, I think a couple of months before it came out, they started actually calling it Resident Evil 7. I think it's going to be the same thing with Resident Evil 8 because Resident Evil 7 was such a success, and they're both FPSs. They're sticking with that. So I think there's a couple of themes that they're trying to repeat because it worked out. Yeah.
So Chris Redfield comes off as a rapist in this trailer. He shows up with you on the ground groveling and he's like, "Sorry, bro." And then he just murks your wife in front of you and then just looks at you like, "I'm not sure if I'm going to rape your wife's corpse or not. I'm going to decide based on what you say to me next." Then the trailer ends. So I call that a cliffhanger.
Yeah. Yeah. So did you beat Resident Evil 7?
I did not beat Resident Evil 7, but I am happy to say that I recovered my save file. So I now have my save file that's about halfway through RE7. And I'm going to finish it now.
Okay.
I'm very happy about that because I was really didn't want to restart from the beginning, and now I don't have to.
Well,
I know a lot about RE7, though. So
we're going to get to the point where we're just going to have to say that this is a direct sequel from RE7.
Well, so let's just get the cat out of the bag. I already know Ethan is the main character.
Well, from what we know.
Well, from the leaks. So there are leaks that came out first person perspective, like RE7. Ethan is the main character. And there's a new nemesis type monster. I found that very interesting. So there's going to be some sort of zombie or something that stalks you throughout the game, much like Nemesis did in RE3.
In RE2, in RE1.
It was a little different though.
I mean, the Tyrant, the Nemesis, they're pretty much the same. Same familiar mechanic.
I don't know. I felt like the implication Nemesis was okay. So the other ones were more like these monsters that were trying to find you to kill you. Nemesis, it felt more like what is a comparison I'm looking for? Terminator. It felt like how the T-2000 that's how Nemesis
he had
felt.
Weapons. Is that because he had a rocket launcher?
Well, there was something
because Tyrant was the same way. That motherfucker was a T-100 as well. He used to come at you, fucking punch you in the face through a fucking wall.
I don't know. Like, there's something about Nemesis that always kind of made him feel different. Like he had more intelligence. Like he was like self-aware. Like he was almost like, it was like you're dealing with like a monster instead of an animal. Is kind of the way I describe it.
Well, yeah. And that is kind of accurate because Nemesis was like a beast. He had a tentacle arm and a fucking mutated face and looked like a monster. His Tyrant looked like a gigantic fucking mountain of a man that died and had his skin wrapped back over him.
Mm-hmm.
He still looked very much human.
Yeah, but either way, RE8 does seem to be taking a few steps back into the traditional survival horror that we're used to. And I really liked RE7's like horror sim vibes. And this is coming from someone that's only played the first half of RE7, but it felt like I was simming a horror movie that I was just in instead of watching.
No doubt.
And I loved that about 7, but I am also excited that they're kind of going more back to like maybe an RE4 type of approach in the actual gameplay and the story structure.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to say that it's going to be gameplay wise like RE4.
Not totally, no, because of the first person perspective.
Even at all. Like, I mean, there's nothing that we have really seen that even gives us any type of evidence that points towards that. But this is where kind of like the crackpot theory has come up for this game. In that something I noticed immediately was soon as I saw the aesthetic of the village, even before the village for the title went over the screen, I was looking at this aesthetic and I was like, man, this kind of looks like RE4.
100%.
Then they called it the village. And I was like, oh, well, I mean, you could literally call Resident Evil 4's subtitle the village because that's literally like what everyone remembers about Resident Evil 4.
Yeah.
Is the Spanish village. And then if you really are a deep diver, you'll realize that this is Resident Evil 8. 4 games since Resident Evil 4.
Yeah. So if you're into numerics, that is definitely significant, and all video game developers are into that shit. Yes,
absolutely.
So I think that you're onto something with that. I think that they made it very obvious that this, at the very minimum, is a huge homage to RE4, if not a stealth sequel, so to speak, because the main character isn't Leon, and where do you think Leon is? Because Leon has not been in a Resident Evil in a while now, and he's the most popular of all the Resident Evil main characters. It's really weird to me that he hasn't come back yet.
He was the main character in, he was a shared main character in Resident Evil 6. So
he was in RE6.
Well, him, Redfield, Ada, and that new guy that never ended up making it to any other game were all the main characters. You got to play all 4 of them. Well,
is this an RE7 spoiler? Is he in RE7? Because I never saw him in RE7.
No.
Okay.
He's
not. I think so.
But I mean, you are right. He hasn't shown if he's not in RE8, that's going to make 2 main titles he hasn't shown up in. But we don't know if he won't show up. We just don't know. We saw Chris Redfield in it for certain reasons, but I just I think the other thing of significance is that when you actually I lost my point. I forgot. I was going to bring something up about another reason why Resident Evil 8 is going to be a sequel to 4. Oh yeah, that's what it is. Another reason why I think Resident Evil 8 is going to be a sequel to Resident Evil 4 is that it's been a long journey with the Las Plagas, and Resident Evil 7 kind of showed almost the apex of where Las Plagas and the T-virus has gone. You know,
talk about the mold.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, I'm really testing my memory right now. I can't really truly remember if the mold actually was Las Plagas or if it was some radical offshoot of a mutation already birthed from the Las Plagas and the T-virus, or if it's just based off the T-virus or another sub-virus from just the T-virus. I don't, there's so much out there. But the point being is the arc with Las Plagas has been going on since RE4. And how perfect would it be to come back to Spain where the Las Plagas was found and, really end the saga? I think that'd be cool. It's a super good opportunity. And I mean, I have great ideas. Don't get me wrong, but I'd like to think that some of those people at Capcom were thinking in line like me.
Yeah, no, I think that it's clear that this is a spiritual sequel to RE4 at the least, and a direct sequel at best. It could be a direct sequel. Chris Redfield was not really involved in RE4, but I always found it interesting that RE4, it kind of had like this outlier status to it. Like you had Wesker, you had some characters from Resident Evil, but it kind of felt like its own little universe a little bit compared to the rest of the RE games. It felt isolated from the rest of the universe. I think that they might actually be introducing Chris Redfield as the villain because they're going to give Leon the opportunity to take him down. Yeah. And that they're not showing him purposefully in the trailer to kind of save it as like a surprise, you know what I'm saying? Like a twist.
For sure. And I mean, I'll be honest, there's certain things about Chris Redfield that I can't really talk about being in this game just because you haven't beaten RE7,
Interesting.
So, once you beat RE7, Chris Redfield being present isn't going to be too much of an oddity to you. I'm going to say right now, like, I still have I've beaten Resident Evil 7. I played it quite a bit, and I didn't play the episodes, the DLC episodes, which I kind of want to do now that I'm talking about it. But maybe those explain Chris's involvement a little bit more, but nonetheless, you'll understand at least him being in the next game.
Well, am I off base and assuming he's the villain based off of
no?
The ending
well, I mean, you
RE7?
Kind of are just because, like he's not. Yeah, I mean, without answering anything, you kind of are off base. Just if you were to play the straight RE7 campaign and nothing else. Like I said, there is a DLC episode of him that I'm not quite sure goes down. But one thing I will say that lends credence to your idea is that, and this goes back to RE4, what was the main dude, the main boss in the original village? The dude where you had to take his eyeball to open up the door to the palace or the castle.
I forget his name. I haven't played RE4 in like 10 years.
You all through the village, though, right?
15 years. Damn. Wait a second.
It's been a minute, man. It's been a strong minute.
Holy fuck! I don't think I've played RE4 since 16 years ago.
If you're talking about when it originally came out on GameCube, absolutely. But it did come out remastered on the PS2, which I played a lot.
When did we grow so old, Broadcaster Nickels?
Anyways, if you think back to the game, in the cinematic moments when that guy showed up, and the angles they used to kind of give him his sinister presence in the Resident Evil 8 trailer, the way they frame Chris Redfield.
Oh, you're right.
Is
I'm remembering
very,
now.
very similar.
You're right.
To the way
yeah.
they give him this very tall, big, sinister presence, you know? Like he's like this giant.
Mm-hmm.
So that might, I mean, I think that's kind of where your mind's probably getting the idea that he's a villain. And I totally see where you're going with that. But I mean, that's all I see.
Yeah. So who do you think the man with the glasses and the hat is?
Salazar's dad. He's fucking pissed. He was on vacation in his villa somewhere while his son got fucking beat down. He's just well, I killed the pedo dude that was taking advantage of him. It's like, it doesn't matter.
They prominently displayed this guy in the trailer, and they kind of gave him the way they shot him in the trailer just made him kind of look like he's supposed to be an iconic piece of this game. And I don't know who the fuck he is. So am I missing something, or is this just a brand new character? Have you ever seen this guy? Do you have any idea who he really is, joking aside?
Well, no. I don't know who he is, and I mean, maybe it's going over my head, but I think he's supposed to be rather A, a new character, or B, he's an older character that's drastically different looking. Maybe
it's Leon.
Dude, you know who it could be? It could be what's his name from Resident Evil 3? Doesn't he survive? Fucking Surfer Boy?
Oh, Jesus Christ. Well, it depends on which ending you have, but yeah, he does survive in the true ending, I think.
Could be him.
Damn, now there's a Crack Cellar theory right there.
I'm just looking at his face right now. I'm just like, yeah, I think he's a new character because I think they're just trying to go with a Van Helsing looking motherfucker.
He honestly, he looked like someone out of Bloodborne to me, and that's not the only, like, this whole thing. Dude, we keep talking about how this game looks so RE4, and it just feels like an RE4 sequel, spiritual sequel. It also feels like they got a lot of inspiration from a village called Yarnum.
He does kind of look like
Father Gassion.
Yeah, Gassion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where my mind was going with him. Just like, dude, it's almost like they said, we want to take RE4 and we just want to put a little Bloodborne in it. That's kind of how I feel when I look at this trailer over and over.
Oh, man. Now I want to play Bloodborne.
Well, like, look at the werewolves. Like, there's just like this element.
It's so overdue, but almost not. Just the fact that I saw him.
Timely.
Yeah, I was just like, man, I didn't even know I wanted him.
Yep.
But now I want them.
Oh, shit.
Such a perfect setting, too. I get, like, these underworld vibes, this Bloodborne vibes, Resident Evil 4 vibes, Van Helsing with that character. You know, now that you bring him up and I'm looking at his face.
The thing that really sticks out about him, too, is he has, like, those anime villain sunglasses. Like, every anime villain has, like, these circular sunglasses that, like, shine red light back at you when they're about to murder you. And he has them. And I'm just like...
Gassion had them.
But before we give our thumbs, what do you say about the most important question in Resident Evil 8? Out of everything we've talked about, will the merchant return from RE4? Because if this is a true RE4 sequel or spiritual successor, whatever you want to call it, the merchant must be there. He is part of the essence of RE4.
Not only should he be there, but he should be explained. There should be an honest, like, effort to give him some type of, like, connection to something where you're just like, oh snap, no fucking way type moment, you know, with that guy, because he deserves it. He was used in one game, he never fucking came back, and he's so iconic. And if it truly is an RE4 sequel, or they're at least going back to that area and they're tying RE4 into it in some way, and he deserves to show up, and he does deserve a true continuum.
Yeah. Agreed. Well then, on that note, Broadcaster Nickels, do you give Resident Evil 8 a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or the dreaded side thumb?
I wish I had 4 thumbs, because I give it 4 thumbs up.
Yeah, big thumbs up from me as well. I love everything about what I've seen so far. I have no concerns. I liked I like the third person over the shoulder perspective from RE4. Don't get me wrong, and I would have been really happy if they brought that back. But I thought first person RE7 worked amazing. I liked it a lot, and I'm willing to give it a shot in a more action-based scenario, which is RE8 at the very least is going to be much more action-based than 7. And I'm willing to give that a shot. Really?
I don't know. We'll see.
Indeed.
Just based on I know, they say, you know, you're being stalked through the forest and stuff like that. And in the intro trailer, or the initial trailer we were given, the way you were just kind of slowly going through that blizzardy trail and coming up to that house or whatever with the castle on the hillside just made me kind of, if there's a lot of that, I can't imagine that's too fast paced. You know, I think there's going to be a lot, like you said, being stalked. A lot of more psychological and emotional fear, like RE7 was good at.
Yeah,
you know, that's because that was the secret sauce to RE7. They didn't need fucking hordes of zombies coming at you and shit like that when you're being served supper with the fam for the first time. You know, you're like, oh damn.
Yeah, indeed. And on that note, Broadcaster Nickels, are you ready to move on to our review of The Lighthouse?
Indeed.
And we're back with our review of Robert Eggers' The Lighthouse, and the creators of this movie describe it as the following. 2 lighthouse keepers try to maintain their sanity whilst living on a remote and mysterious New England island in the 1890s. Broadcaster Nickels, have you ever seen a Hitchcock movie?
It's a hard question. It's no.
Well,
I don't think I have. What movies has he done?
Well, the one that is famous is Psycho.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And he also did like The Birds or whatever. I don't know if it was just called Birds or The Birds, but
I watched that in high school.
The Birds?
Both of those in high school.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 good ones. I think those are the 2 I've seen. And I might have seen another one. I just don't remember which one it is. I think I did see one other one, but I'm not a huge Hitchcock fan. I don't like black and white. And, you know, I'm an 80s kid, so the pacing of Hitchcock never sat right with me. When I'd watch his stuff, I'd always just kind of be like bored to my tears.
Who was the guy that did Eraserhead and Elephant Man and stuff?
David Lynch.
David Lynch, that was his name. I personally got some David Lynch vibes from The Lighthouse.
Interesting take, because I did not have that come to mind at all.
Bear in mind, like I just said at the beginning, I have honestly no real takes on Alfred Hitchcock. I know the name, but I didn't even realize that I had seen his movies. It's been so long, you know, since high school, and I was like, if you got to me then, I realized I just watched 2 Alfred Hitchcock movies. But when someone asked me that question, I'm just like, fuck, I honestly I couldn't name one Alfred Hitchcock movie.
Yeah.
But I know I've seen something.
Yeah. I mean, if I were a kid growing up in the time where he was, you know, the guy doing it, like currently, I'm sure he would have been my favorite director of all time. I'm sure of it.
Well, I mean, to be relevant on the topic, I mean, I would say David Lynch was probably a fan of Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
He was a kid during Hitchcock's stuff. So that's exactly, yeah. Yeah, I guess yeah. Twin Peaks definitely does have some Hitchcock styling to it as well, now that I really think about it.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, Lighthouse is its own movie in its own right. It's definitely its own movie in its own right.
Oh, it is.
But I only said David Lynch because I had just recently watched Eraserhead. You recommended Eraserhead like no less than a year ago, right? Yeah. I would say. And that was probably one of the weirdest television or cinema experiences I've ever had, period. Weird.
No doubt.
Beyond weird. Like, I actually had to watch it. I watched it completely, and then I skimmed past it a second time just to try to, like, understand what I was watching. It was very weird.
Yeah, it's one of the most esoteric movies I think I've ever seen. Yeah, sort of.
In that style, though, where I had to watch it once and slowly skim over it again.
I only watched it the one time, and it's funny too because usually I watch movies like The Lighthouse while I'm drinking, but just by happenstance I ended up watching this not drinking. Very sober. I watched this movie. Yikes. Stone cold sober, and I was not prepared.
Yeah, Willem Dafoe doesn't recommend that.
No. It's definitely a movie that I recommend being altered to watch, and I kind of wish I would have been.
I can't imagine watching this movie sober.
Oh, I know. I know. It was a very weird experience.
You know, here on the Crack Cellar, we're about going deep. Too deep. But I'm going to go out on a limb here and say The Lighthouse would be a great base for a Resident Evil storyline.
Ooh.
Wouldn't it? When you think about it? Think about it if you were Robert Pattinson, right? And you got this job to go to a lighthouse, right? Mm-hmm. You're on hard times. You need it. You have a dark past that you'll find out later, and you need this job. Think about how that would actually play out in a Resident Evil 7 type fashion, where it's first person and you're going to do these duties and you're just like having these hallucinations of like mermaids and dead bodies and fucking madness and seagulls with one eye and shit. I mean, maybe not a complete AAA Resident Evil title, but maybe like a side bar. Like, I remember PS3 was new and it was doing digital art, weird shit in the store. Something like that. I know that was deep. But there's a lot of pieces to that. But I know here at the Crack Cellar, we got people that are paying attention. They connect the dots. Right? They connect dots.
Oh, and there are many dots to connect. So, only 2 characters in this movie, which is something pretty standard back in the day. Old movies were like that a lot, but new movies, man. Most new movies have like an ensemble cast of like 8 names nowadays. So it's interesting to just see a movie with only 2 characters, period.
Well, come now. There were 4 characters.
Okay. I think I know where you're going with this.
I am a cinema expert. Okay. There were 4 characters present in the movie. They had screen time. You have to respect them. Go on.
No, I'm waiting to see who the other 2 characters are. Tell me.
Oh, sorry. I thought you realized. The 2 people they were replacing as they walked away. They were the only 2 people in the movie the whole time.
Yeah, okay, but they don't actually show you what they like their face, like their shadows walking, basically.
No,
you don't see their faces.
Absolutely, you do.
What?
Yeah, it's the only scene where they approach. Well, not they approach. They get on the island, and it's that weird time lapse scene where it's showing like stills of them walking up to the lighthouse as the people they're replacing walk past them.
I remember that being like zoomed out and not being able to see their faces.
Well, I mean, you don't have high definition photos of their faces, but you see a full body photo. It's not like a silhouette or like.
Well, no, I know that, but you can't see their faces, so like, it's like they're not really in. You know what I'm saying?
Their faces.
I don't think so. I'd have to go back and look, but I swear that it was zoomed out to the point where you couldn't really see their faces. Like, you would never be able to identify who they were, even if they were like a name actor. Like, it was Brad Pitt. I don't think you would have been able to name who it was.
Oh, yeah, I get what you're saying now.
Yeah.
They're not identifiable.
Exactly.
But you definitely see them. And like they're definitely credited.
Yeah.
And I say respect them.
Well, I'm not going to call them characters when they have no lines, you can't see their faces, and they're on the screen for 3 seconds. I'm going to go ahead and veto that Crack Cellar theory and go back to my original.
You may be taking a shit, but I respect it.
Yeah. You know what? 3 characters. The mermaid. You can see her face. I don't really understand. I don't know.
Okay,
this is a weird movie. This is just weird.
I consider the sequel more of a fucking character than the mermaid. All right.
Well, it's an actress, and you can see her face, so it's like, okay.
The bird is an actor.
Okay, PETA, let's calm down. Very unsettling tone in this movie. It's one of those movies where it tries to distress you with the direction. Like, there's this persistent foghorn that they play throughout the movie that has no real specific purpose other than to just frighten you on a subliminal level, because for some reason humans hear that and they think apocalypse, end of the world, zombies, something to that effect when you hear a foghorn like that.
Well, it's a psychological effect, no doubt, right? I mean, there's many horror movies that have taken advantage of the effect, and other types of genres too. You know, there's something about this immense tone, a single tone, just like a horn, just slowly going up and overwhelming you.
Yeah.
And then you repeat it. You know, Silent Hill has taken a similar effect. Christopher Nolan movies.
Many movies.
Yeah, for sure. Christopher Nolan and his soundtracks always take advantage of the effect. But yeah, I mean, it's
getting back to our preview of Tenet.
Dum dum dum. It always goes back.
Do you get any Lovecraft vibes? Not going into specifics, but like when you watch this movie, at times, did you ever think, I'm feeling some Lovecraft going on?
Yeah, I mean, they were definitely tugging on the strings of the supernatural in the movie with the sirens and whatnot.
And the way they portray, it's not even that it's supernatural, it's just kind of the way it's portrayed, in my opinion. I know that you haven't done or read as much Lovecraft, and maybe that would affect the way you look at it, but the presentation of the supernatural stuff, and we're going to talk about one of them in the spoiler section that I think is one of the most amazing and horrifying scenes of all time. But the portrayal of the supernatural essence and power just gave me some straight up Lovecraft vibes in a few different scenes, not just one.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you, but there are other scenes that, well, I'll just say that go the exact opposite direction of what I would say Lovecraft would do.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard. It's really hard to talk about them without spoiling them.
Well,
but
on that note,
Yeah.
Do you want to just go into the spoilers?
I'll just say that this movie is very unique and is not innocent at all. And I honestly thought it was. Like, when I first saw the movie, I saw Robert Pattinson, and I was like, oh, okay, he has been in a lot of movies. He's about to do Batman. This is kind of like a movie to show his artistic chops and kind of get people to see what he's been doing for the past a little bit. I didn't expect it to be as dark as it was. It was, and I don't mean dark in like traditional horror. I mean dark as in like fucking humanly dark. It's very weird.
Yeah. Again, kind of some cosmic terror, abyss type vibes.
Not
going
too
on
much though.
here.
It's like it's
Very subtle.
It's
Very
scraping
subtle.
the surface.
Yes, very much so. But it's there, like this unseeing eye that's stalking you, but you don't know it's there, but you can feel that it's there. That's kind of how I would describe the Lovecraft influence on this movie.
If I was to say the main themes of the movie would be consumption and obsession.
And madness.
Well, yeah, I think obsession and madness kind of are almost hand in hand when you bring in the consumption.
Yeah, okay, touche. I think I buy that algorithm, I think. All right, well, I'm going to say this is an interesting movie. It's one of those movies that isn't for everyone. Short and not easy to watch. There's probably a lot of people that will watch this movie and will turn it off at certain scenes, I think. There's 2 scenes in particular that come to mind where I could see some people just be like, I didn't sign up for this shit, and just straight up turn it off. That being said, I think it is worth watching because it's an experience I will never forget. And with that, let's go into our spoiler section, Broadcaster Nickels.
Not like this.
So this is isolation horror, basically. This movie ends up being 2 guys show up, tag teaming in to take a lighthouse on an island. And it starts off right off the bat. You just know that these 2 aren't going to get along. And it just goes from there. And it just, like you said, starts off a little innocent. And it just slowly slips into cuckoo.
Yeah, I mean, it's unique in the way that they kind of set it up to make it seem like they're just not going to get along. But there are definitely other elements to it. Like eventually Robert Pattinson character, which I'm forgetting his name now. I know it was.
Well, he has 3.
Defoe with Thomas Wake. Oh yeah,
they have 3. He has 3 different names, and not to interrupt you, but my second question to you is going to be: are both of those characters actually real? And if not, which one is fake? Because there is some real. There's a window open on that, in my opinion. It didn't explicitly state it, but I got the feeling that one of those is a psycho projection of the other.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the vibe I got is that it was in one conversation. I think it was towards the end of the movie where he kind of reveals his full dark past, and that the job that he got on the island was like the last resort. So he was like, that's why he took it. I feel like that was his true self.
Yeah.
That was him, like just, and the other parts were his like psychosis, like his compartmentalization of his past,
Yeah, because when he brings up the guy, he didn't really murder him, but he let him die, I guess, is basically what I got out of it. I sort of got the feeling after that Willem Dafoe's character is a psycho projection of Robert Pattinson, and that he's actually the guy that he let die. But he's projecting him as this new character in the lighthouse.
Oh, no doubt.
Is that what you think too?
For sure.
Okay.
For sure. Yeah. And I think like at the end, I don't want to skip too far ahead, but if we're in the spoiler section, I might as well add that end of the movie with it just abruptly showing Robert Pattinson, it shows him finally get access to the lighthouse. He touches, whatever that fucking thing is, the giant glass thing that makes the lighthouse illuminate. And he has like a fucking orgasm. I thought just for a second, he was beating off again. I was just like, son of a bitch. I was like, is this gonna beat off? and
Who are those kids whacking it in my trailer?
And then it was over. The light overwhelmed the screen, and he just appeared as like this cadaver just being eaten alive by the seagulls, right? That I truly think you're right. And that all that was going through his mind as he was dying on the island, as he killed that person originally. Yeah, and he was explaining this to his like older projection of his older self or whatever.
Yeah. They left it open though. Like
you can take it in many ways.
Yeah, and I think that's my best praise of this movie overall. I think is they did a weird ending and they just left it so open that you could come up with like 4 different really workable theories on what actually happened on that island.
Yeah, you can definitely speculate on a lot that happened on that island, but you definitely can know for certain a few things that happened on that fucking island. Some very dark tales happened on that island. I remember, like I said, this was one of those movies where you watch one time all the way through, and then you skim through to try to understand it.
Did you get understanding watching Robert Pattinson's Vinegar Strokes for the 3rd time?
I will never understand the Vinegar Strokes for the 3rd time.
Oh my god!
First time, I'm like, all right, I get it, but you're trying to like show some artistic value to like the isolation, but the 3rd time.
Oh my god. That is one of the scenes that I was talking about that I think some people might just turn it off. The other one
takes a strong will. To get through the lighthouse.
The other one is when Robert Pattinson goes up to the top of the lighthouse and is accosted by a naked Willem Dafoe who shoots a fucking laser beam out of his eyes like he's Cyclops with his schlong hanging out in like this dramatic Sin City-esque still frame scene with like animation in the background and shit. It was like one of the most bizarre scenes in my entire life. I've seen so much shit, Broadcaster Nickels, in my life. I've seen so much TV, so many movies, so many anime, so many video games, so many everything. And this scene struck something into the core of my brain. I close my eyes at night and I see that scene, and it's going to haunt me forever, dude.
Well, I mean, I agreed with your theory, earlier, but my idea is and it was based off that scene alone. And it's kind of like yours, is that the moment he goes up there to see where Willem Dafoe's character is, and then he sees his own self on the ground, and he trying to pick him up, and then he gets turned around by Willem Dafoe's character, and he gets beamed in the eyes by the lighthouse light. That was the scene that kind of explained to me that everyone was the same character. Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe are the same character, the same person, I should say. And that he was alone on that island, and he's running away from his past, and he's having this weird, crazy trip, and he ends up just like going on a crazy psychopathic trip and dies on that island and gets eaten alive by the seagulls. I'll tell you, I will never, and it's funny you say Alfred Hitchcock, because now that scene makes sense, but my favorite scene is when he goes outside in the morning and he sees the seagull dead in the shit tank, and he takes it out and all the seagulls are swarming, and it plays that ominous music.
That was one of the strongest Hitchcock vibes of the entire movie right there. Good call.
It's so funny. It's so fucking funny.
Yeah. There's a lot of, it's so weird how many scenes in this movie there's like no dialogue. There's such a weird slow pace of this movie where I feel like there's 5-10 minutes at times that go by with like no one saying anything.
I would say that's probably the average. Anywhere from 5 to 8 minutes is probably how long it takes for someone to start talking.
Yeah, it's like this weird string of these interludes, like with what we said before, like the foghorn that'll be like the only noise in the scene is the foghorn, and it'll just be setting you up with this sense of tension and isolation. This is a very masterfully directed movie.
Yeah.
Robert Eggers knows how to direct a movie. I'll give him that.
Yeah. Well, the foghorn was very meta.
Yeah.
It ended up being like a mix between the siren and just something Robert Pattinson character heard.
Mm-hmm.
And which is another piece of evidence that lends to the fact that Robert Pattinson was the only person on that island. You know? Willem Dafoe didn't hear that foghorn.
No, and Willem Dafoe also never worked. Whenever it showed him working, he was always working by himself. And then Willem Dafoe would show up for dinner time and to drink with him.
Yep.
So
it was like that. It's like the Lighthouse was Dr. Manhattan. You know, he was just like watching his whole life play out on this lighthouse, past, future, and present.
Yeah, that's not a bad comparison actually. I did really like the writing in this movie too. The interactions between Dafoe and Pattinson were just like, I'm not a huge fan of Robert Pattinson, but this movie gives me hope that he'll do good with Batman because of the way he portrayed a crazy motherfucker. And I want Batman to be a little crazy. And he showed me something in this movie, the way that he interacted with Dafoe at times, like, where it starts off with him like being like, oh, I don't drink. You drink by yourself, bro. I'm not doing any toast with you. Fuck you. I'm the straight edge, straight to work guy. And then slowly through the movie, it ends up flipping to where he was the drunk and Willem Dafoe's like, bro, calm down. Calm down, dude. You're going off the deep end. The interactions
starts off like that.
He becomes the liquor. It's just crazy the progression of him going from straight edge to just the worst alcoholic you've ever seen in your life. And the interactions in between as this happens with Dafoe are just every single scene with them talking together are the best scenes of the movie. They just like have this rapport. I wonder if they like took a summer vacation together before they filmed or something.
Well, Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson are very artistic actors. They do like very weird movies that no one hears about.
Yeah.
You know, they're those type of actors.
True.
So they might have some weird camaraderie. They may have even worked on some movies that we don't even know about.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, oh man. I really enjoyed the sound effects. We talked about the foghorn, but overall the sound work in this movie is just perfect. You couldn't have done the sound any better.
It's one of the biggest factors in the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, with any horror thriller, whatever you want to call The Lighthouse, you know, the soundtrack definitely lent to the value of the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, no doubt. It reminded me, the foghorn always reminded me of Silent Hill. I don't know why, but every time I heard it, I was just like,
for sure.
I just get that vibe.
Yeah, same here. I got lots of Silent Hill vibes from that foghorn, and maybe that's why it struck us the way it did, and maybe other people won't experience it the same way. I'm not sure. I feel like it's universal, though. I feel like there's just something about that noise, no matter how you're familiar with it, or if you've never even heard it before in your entire life, which is doubtful, but maybe. I think it just strikes something in the human psyche.
For sure. Sound definitely plays a role in fucking with people.
Yeah. Oh, man. Fucking. It's really interesting the way the Lighthouse was this like last level hidden secret from the entire movie until the very end. And what happens in that lighthouse is just like, did you see any of that coming? Like, honestly, did you see anything like that coming before it happened?
The end?
Well, like I saw, like the naked Willem Dafoe Cyclops laser beam shit. Like, Could you possibly imagine something like that was going to happen in this movie before it happened?
No.
It's fucking crazy for a movie to surprise you like that deeply, but I was just in a state of shock when that scene came up. Like, I was just like, what the fuck just happened?
It was also the scene that just makes you realize the movie's a mental trip. It's a mental game. Like, it's not like it's in one person's head.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And man, I want to say Willem Dafoe was great in this movie, but his best work was the scene where fucking they're both drunk and Robert Pattinson says he doesn't like his cooking, and he goes off on like a 2-minute curse to the Sea King, aka Cthulhu. Another Lovecraft reference, I believe. This curse he does is so good. I want to know how much he rehearsed that curse. The way he delivered it was like one of the most genuine deliveries I've ever seen of something so ridiculous.
Another theory, because when you delve deep down on that one, you're just like, maybe there were two people on that.
Mm-hmm.
And the curse is like making him live out like the whole thing out on the island. You know, I don't know.
I honestly think that's what you're supposed to believe. Like, if there's like a default, this is what happened in this movie, I really do believe that you're supposed to think that they are two people and that Defoe cursed him and that everything happens after that curse is the curse. And then he's dead on the beach with the seagulls eating him while Defoe just leaves the island by himself.
That's such a fucking petty fucking story. Sailor gets mad at other sailor for dissing his cooking, so he uses ancient sea curse on him and leaves him isolated on a lighthouse island to fucking go mad.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense because the way that they portrayed Defoe in this, it almost like you want to believe he wasn't real because of his portrayal of the character. If it is a real person, you're like, oh my God. Well, any other thoughts before we get to the hit, the miss, and the whiff?
I mean, there's many thoughts with this piece of cinema history we are reviewing here. And I say cinema history very heavily because anyone that's witnessed this with their own eyes will not be soon to forget. Let's just put it that way. There are very few actors, especially ones as young as Robert Pattinson, that have tried to take the mantle of masturbating on screen. Well, phantom masturbating on screen. I don't know, whatever you want to call it, all right? I know there's Marky Mark. And there's Robert Pattinson, all right? Those are the only two I know. There's probably many out there. But you get up to a certain echelon, you know, when you pull a maneuver, an X-Wing pro pilot fucking fighter maneuver like that. All right?
Yeah.
And that's all I'll say.
It really, it's an hour and a half long movie, but when you're done, it really just comes down to the masturbation and the Cyclops laser beams. Like, this movie,
they're highlights for sure.
Like, we have these great acting performances from both these guys and many scenes, but it's like you're left with this haunting reverie, like this fucking thing that happened to you, almost like your brain got raped by Robert Pattinson's masturbation, man. Like, you didn't see it.
I felt abused a little bit. I definitely didn't sign up for that. Yeah. Can you imagine the day on set where that had to be filmed?
Oh my God.
I mean, just think about it a little bit. Just like seriously meditate on it and think about putting yourself in the shoes of Robert Pattinson. And, I know it was the POV was from behind his back. And I'm sure that helped in some degree to help the scene a little bit more. But when he had to turn around when they said cut, and put his robe on and walk back to the trailer or whatever the fuck he does. Think about that weight.
Dude.
How many cuts were there? How many takes?
And the thing about it is, like, this dude, while he's doing this, is probably thinking about how he's going to portray Bruce Wayne in a couple of years while this is happening.
I'm Batman. I'm Batman. I'm Batman. Show me I'm Batman.
Jesus Christ. This movie was the curveball you do not see coming. And whether or not you enjoy that experience is going to be very personal, I think, for most people. But man, oh man, did they do a good job in this movie just giving you something you never fucking expected to see.
Absolutely. If I was trying to keep someone totally oblivious to Lighthouse, that's exactly what I would say. It's nothing you're expecting to see. It's just a swell time.
Yeah, it's funny too, because like when I say the Lighthouse and I hear the Lighthouse, I always think of that fucking Sandra Bullock rom-com time travel movie called The Lake House, where she like gets letters in the mail from like a time traveler or some shit.
What the fuck?
Yeah, it's a really horrible movie, dude. But every time I hear the Lighthouse, and when I was like, my brain was just like associating the two. So my brain was not expecting what I got. I was expecting something much more akin to like this character drama between two old sailors on a lighthouse where, maybe tensions broil up and, they have some fights, but then they make it through and they leave the island happy and, that's what I expected. And when you go into this movie and you get what you get, it's talk about subversion.
Yeah, for sure. If subversion means, when you go to a restaurant and you really have your eyes set on a meal and they order it for you and you're psyched up, you're prepared to get it, and then they give you something totally different and you're just like, I wanted this, and they're just like, you're gonna like this, and you eat it and you actually like it. You're just like, wow, this is good, but not what I wanted. That's the Lighthouse.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement. Well, on that note, let's get to our segment, the hit, the miss, and the whiff. Broadcaster Nickels, what is your hit?
My hit? The One-Eyed Seagull. No, I'm just kidding. My hit would probably be the black and white. I think it was
meta.
It just lended so much. At first, I thought it was just going to be some tropey thing where they just use black and white to make it just seem old, but it was one of the linchpin elements to the movie. I felt if you would think about that movie in color, it would be different. And it's crazy to say that, but it would be completely different.
Yeah, it definitely would be. I don't like black and white movies very often, but I can actually safely say this is my favorite black and white movie of all time.
Oh, there's Seven Samurai, original Seven Samurai. Some dope ass movies, man. Like that were black and white. But I can agree with what you say. I understand with what you say.
Yeah, I don't know. I most black and white movies I just can't get into. This one I got into, but man, it's like a deal with the devil watching this movie.
Yeah, it's appropriate.
My hit is going back to what we've already talked about. Naked Willem Dafoe shooting lasers out of his eyes at Batman. This scene, I can't stress enough how unique and bizarre it is, how jarring it is. It's like when you live in a place that doesn't get a lot of earthquakes, like say Montana, and you get like a 6.0 earthquake. And you're just like, what the fuck is this? That's how that scene felt to me when I watched that movie. And it kind of made the experience for me. If that scene weren't in the movie, I probably would have rated it a little bit lower than what I do end up rating it.
Seems right.
Broadcaster Nickels, what is your miss?
The miss were the masturbation scenes. And maybe even tie those together with the bed humping. And let me just say here, something they don't really ever point out. But in the beginning of the movie, when Robert Pattinson pulls that mermaid statue out of that hole in the mattress, and later when he's doing the roofing and he sees Willem Dafoe's character fucking the mattress, it made me think a little bit. Anyways, I think both those you could tie together as the miss for this movie, because I don't think they were really necessary for the total story arc of the movie.
No. Those scenes were just like, I don't know.
They were just there. They were just there for shock value and perplexity.
Yeah. Wow. My miss is the ending. When I say the ending, I mean like the ending. And that is seeing Robert Pattinson's corpse on the beach just being eaten. So I like the ending, but I think it was a miss to not extend it a little bit more and kind of fill in the gap between the corpse being eaten and what happens right before it, because it seems like they skip a little bit of time and they kind of just say, and this is what ends up happening to him, the end. Whereas I think that they could have added a few more elements to the ending and still had the same ultimate ending where he's on the beach being eaten. But there could have been a little bit more context given to it and made it a little bit more like gratifying, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree. And, you know, just to get to my point, I guess, is that I'm going to go right to the whiff, is that my whiff is your miss. I thought the ending was good, but it just like, it was kind of like an easy way out. I was really looking forward to like him leaving the island and going back to like mainland and people just being like, you're under arrest, you crazy psycho son of a bitch. And I'll be like, oh, okay. It explains a lot, you know, or something like that. But you just see him dead on the shore, which was artistically good. And I kind of agree with it. It wasn't it wasn't the worst way to end the movie, but it was kind of just an easy way out for, like I said.
Yeah.
That's why it's kind of a whiff for me.
Yeah. Well, my whiff is Robert Pattinson's mustache. God damn, does that look like one of the worst mustaches I've ever seen in my life.
He has a powerful mustache. How dare you, sir?
I don't even think that mustache was real. I think that was glued on.
Pretty sure it was real. Looked real, but who knows? Hollywood's pretty good shit now.
It looked hokey as fuck to me. I loved Defoe's, what he had going on, but fucking Pattinson looked like he was a kid with a mask on.
Yeah. Willem Dafoe would be the coolest pirate in the world.
Fuck yeah, dude. Hire him right now for any pirate movie.
As he was quoting Long John Silver as he was getting buried alive in the fucking next to land. I was like, I want to be like him when I die.
Yeah. Well, Broadcaster Nickels, as you know, on the Crack Cellar, we use the patented Joker rating system. On that system, what do you rate the Lighthouse?
Titties. No. Cut that from the record. Let me rethink here. I'm gonna give it a Heath Ledger. No. No. I'm gonna give it a Jack Nicholson. It deserves it.
Yeah, man, I do like this movie, but I am gonna have to give it a Heath. I like it, but I don't love it. And some of the decisions, masturbate. Some of the decisions took a letter grade off of it for me. Like,
Two-Spirit Penguin, are you saying there were some scenes in the movie that weren't quite child appropriate or consciously acceptable?
Fuck child appropriate, man. I do not want to see the dude from Twilight masturbate, the showing his dude. You saw the eye motions and the facial motions he made. That was disgusting. We did not need to see all that, man. I could have gone my whole life not seeing that and been very happy.
The first scene was one thing, but the moment it started showing him vigorously going at it in the shack in the storm, I was like, this is odd.
Yeah. It's like, does the director, does he have a crush on him? And he's like, we have to do this scene. And he's like,
yeah.
What's the point of this scene? He's like, we just have to do it, okay?
That was my main take from that scene. I was like, is Robert Pattinson in danger? Did they make him do this?
Well, on that note, I think we will close out.
Alright, G, I'm gonna go spit my bars on fucking Fruity Loops. Peace!